where we've been on vacation this past week, meeting up with our son Sam and his wife Kelsey and our little grandson Miles, just outside the Rocky Mountain National Park, where I was subjected to daily death marches up and down the mountainsides. It wasn't even pretty because in 2020, the second largest wildfire in the history of Colorado, the East Troublesome Fire, burned 200,000 acres of forest to a crisp. So it was like a dystopian slog through the mountains, the charred remains of trees lying in blackened heaps. But I couldn't complain because everyone else in the family kept marveling at how pretty everything was. It reminded me of attending a Quaker conference right after Vladimir Putin had invaded Ukraine, and all those Quakers were talking about solving the problem peacefully, and how even Vladimir Putin had the light of God within him, which theologically I believe that then, I believe it now. But what I also believed was that someone needed to punch Vladimir Putin in the nose. But I couldn't say that in front of all of those Quakers, just like I couldn't say the mountains were not particularly beautiful after a forest fire in front of my family. So whenever anyone said how pretty everything was, I just smiled. Yes, it is, isn't it? At one point, my daughter-in-law, Kelsey, said, "Look how the sunlight glimmers on burnt tree trunks. Isn't it glorious?" To which I said, "Just lovely. I've never seen anything so pretty." My daughter-in-law doesn't know it yet, but she's destined to end up a Quaker. I can see it coming a mile away. Well, haven't we had some beauty this morning? After a gorgeous week of weather and stunning music this morning, isn't it easy as we sit here this morning to be an optimist, to believe in the ultimate triumph of goodness and beauty? These past couple months, we've been thinking about things the early Quakers got just right. Prior to that, we had a sermon series on what in the world were the early Quakers thinking, and then we wanted to end on a positive note, so we've been talking about the things they got right. And let's add to the things they got right the early friends' conviction in the triumph of good, expressed by our founder, George Fox, who wrote of a vision he had had, saying, "I saw that there was an ocean of darkness and death, but an infinite ocean of light and love, which flowed over the ocean of darkness." Too often, religions see only the ocean of darkness and death and nothing beyond it. Religion's tendency toward the dark side was observed by the French philosopher Blaise Pascal, who said, "Men never do evil so completely and cheerfully as when they do it from religious convictions." A few weeks ago here in this room, I was doing a memorial service, and the family of the woman who had died asked if we could play a recording of Elvis Presley singing "How Great Thou Art." I told them if they felt led to do that, they could. Fine by me. So we played it, and as we were listening to it, I had this epiphany. An epiphany. I realized that over the years, I've come to feel the exact same way about Elvis and Jesus. I love both of them, but their fan clubs kind of creep me out. Their fan clubs kind of creep me out. And one of the things that creep me out about Jesus's fan clubs is their gleeful pessimism. Their gleeful pessimism. You would think gleeful pessimism is a contradiction in terms, but it isn't, and that's the only way to describe it. Gleeful pessimism, because I've met some of Jesus' fans who simply cannot wait for Jesus to descend on the clouds and start killing folks off, who seem positively giddy at the prospect, who pray daily for it to happen. The first words out of their mouths each morning, "Dear God, let this be the day." Quakers never believed that. Now, to be sure, we did believe, and still do, that there is joy to be had in living in the light of Christ. But we were never so grim and severe to believe God had it in for those who didn't believe that. We believed the light of God was just as present in them as in us. We believed in the triumph of good over evil, that evil would not be destroyed through wrath, but transformed through love. Now, does this happen instantly? No, it takes time. I've been watching the political conventions, both of them. Oh my. These past several weeks, and while there are vast differences in the aims and objectives of the parties, and I know which one I prefer, they both assure us that if voted into power, Americans will awaken to a new and better nation. America will either be great again on November 6th, or come November 6th, Americans will once again be free. But don't be misled. Enduring, redemptive transformation takes time and requires our patience. So there we were, hiking through the burned out forest. And every now and then, there'd be a little clutch of flowers or a 6-inch sprout of a ponderosa pine poking up through the ashes. Life always wins out. I kept wishing I could return to that forest in 30 years and see the transformation. I'll be gone by then, but my son won't. And maybe he'll bring his son back and say, "When you were 2 years old, we brought you here and it was all burnt up, but look at it now." And maybe my grandson will be feeling right then that his life is charred and burnt over. And he will witness and see firsthand the triumph of beauty, the positive persistence of life in what was once a graveyard of ruins, and it will inspire him to go on. Those old Quakers got it exactly right, that there is an ocean of darkness and death, but an infinite ocean of light and love, which flows over the ocean of darkness. During one of our hikes, we came across a group of college students splitting granite boulders into square blocks by hand to make terraced steps to prevent erosion. I stopped to chat with them, which I'm sure they appreciated, an old white guy wanting to wax philosophical. But they set down their tools. They were very polite. And they told me where they were from and what they were studying at college. And I said to one of them, "One day, 50 years from now, you'll bring your grandchildren here and show them the work you did." And this young woman smiled and said, "That's the plan. That's the plan. That's the plan." Friends, believe in the long view. Believe that the gesture of love today will pay. Believe in the long view. Karen, remember that. You will forget this. Believe in the long view. Believe that the gesture of love today will pay enduring dividends tomorrow. And if not tomorrow, then next year or the year after that. The long view, we saw it here this morning, when one woman who picked up a bow at the age of 18 months after watching her mother play, playing alongside a woman who sat for her first lesson at the age of 7 and has been at it ever since. When these two women became living, breathing testimonies to the triumph of beauty and the positive persistence of life.